The bread was 3 days old and hard as stone, but Sarah ate it anyway. Rain hammered the cobblestones behind the kitchen house, each drop a tiny explosion of cold against her already frozen skin. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, though there was plenty of that, but from hunger that gnawed at her belly like a living thing. She'd been forbidden to eat the servant's meal again. 3rd time this week. Cook said she was too clumsy, too slow, too much of a waste. So here she was, crouched in the shadows like a thief, choking down stale bread while thunder rolled across the North Pack Mountains like the gods were angry. She didn't hear him approach. Nobody ever did. "What are you doing?" The voice cut through the storm, cold, precise, utterly devoid of warmth. Sarah's heart stopped. The bread tumbled from her fingers into a puddle. She looked up, and every survival instinct in her body screamed run. King Theron Blackfrost stood 10 feet away, rain streaming down his face like tears he'd never shed. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dark hair plastered to his skull. And those eyes, gods, those eyes, like winter itself had taken residence in a man's body. Gray as a frozen lake, just as lifeless. This was the king who'd ended the Southern Rebellion with nothing but a sword and silence. Who ruled the largest pack in the Northern Territories without a smile, without mercy, without a single shred of humanity left in him. They said the curse had stolen his wolf 7 years ago. That he was more corpse than king now. Sarah's mouth went dry. She pressed herself against the stone wall, rain and tears mixing on her cheeks. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I'll go. I asked you a question. His voice never rose. It didn't need to. Authority bled from every word like poison from a wound. I was just. Her throat closed up. What could she say? That she was stealing scraps because the other servants hated her? That she was so far beneath his notice she might as well be dirt? Thunder cracked overhead, and lightning painted the world white for one terrible second. That's when it happened. Theron's eyes flashed gold. Not gray. Not dead. Gold, bright and burning and impossibly, terrifyingly alive. He staggered backward like he'd been struck. His hand flew to his chest, fingers clawing at his shirt. For a moment, just a heartbeat, his face transformed from ice to something raw and almost human. "No," he whispered. Then louder, rougher, like the word was being torn from somewhere deep inside, "No." Sarah's wolf whimpered in her chest, a weak, pathetic thing that had never been strong enough to protect her from anything. But even her broken wolf recognized what she was seeing. An alpha on the edge of losing control. She ran. Her feet slipped on wet stone. She crashed into a rain barrel, sent it spinning. Didn't matter. She had to get away, had to hide, had to stop. The command cracked through the air like a whip, carrying the weight of absolute dominance. Her legs locked. Her body froze mid-step, every instinct bowing to the alpha order even as her mind screamed at her to keep moving. She heard his footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. He didn't rush. Kings never rushed. He circled around to face her, and Sarah's breath caught. His eyes were still gold. Blazing with something that looked almost like wonder. Almost like pain. "What's your name?" The question came out hoarse, like he'd forgotten how to speak. Sarah. Sarah Whitlock. Sarah. He said it slowly, tasting each letter. His hand lifted toward her face, then stopped, hovering in the air between them. His fingers trembled. "How long have you been here?" 2 months, Your Majesty." 2 months. A bitter laugh escaped him, the sound so unexpected, so wrong coming from the cold king, that Sarah flinched. 2 months you've been under my roof, and I never. He didn't finish. His eyes tracked over her. The threadbare dress, the bruises on her arms from rough handling, the hollow spaces hunger had carved beneath her cheekbones. His jaw tightened. "Who did this to you?" "No one, Your Majesty." I'm clumsy. I'm not. Who? The word dropped like an axe. The storm seemed to hold its breath. It doesn't matter. Sarah forced the words out through chattering teeth. I'm nothing. Just a servant. I shouldn't have been eating the bread. I'll accept whatever punishment. Punishment? Something flickered across his face. You think I'm going to punish you? Aren't you? For a long moment, he just stared at her. The rain kept falling. Thunder rolled in the distance. And King Theron Blackfrost, the man who hadn't shown emotion in 7 years, looked at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. A miracle he didn't believe in. Go inside, he said finally. Get dry. Eat. And tomorrow, you report to my chambers. Sarah's stomach dropped. Your chambers? Did I stutter? No, Your Majesty, but I. That's an order, Sarah Whitlock. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain before she could form another word. Sarah stood there, frozen, her mind spinning. Why had his eyes turned gold? Why had he looked at her like that, like she was something precious and terrifying all at once? And why did her wolf, weak as it was, keep whispering one impossible word? Mate. Theron made it halfway across the courtyard before his legs gave out. He caught himself against the stone fountain, fingers digging into cold marble. His heart, that dead thing that hadn't beat properly in 7 years, was hammering against his ribs like it wanted to break free. Mate. His wolf, silent and dormant since the day the witch's curse took hold, was roaring inside his mind. 7 years of nothing, of emptiness, of being half alive and half dead. And one look at a trembling maid with rain in her hair, and everything came flooding back. The warmth. Gods, the warmth. It spread through his chest like wildfire, burning away ice he'd thought permanent. He could feel his wolf again, feel it pacing and snarling and claiming. Mine. Ours. Mine. Your Majesty. Theron's head snapped up. His beta, Marcus, stood a few feet away, concern etched across his scarred face. Are you ill? Ill. That was one word for it. Theron straightened, forcing ice back into his veins, freezing the warmth before it could show on his face. I'm fine. You're standing in a thunderstorm. Observant as ever. Theron moved past him toward the castle. Gather information on every servant in the household. Names, backgrounds, how long they've been here. I want it by morning. Your Majesty, we have 300 servants. Then you'd better start now. Marcus knew better than to argue. He bowed and disappeared. Theron climbed the stone steps to his chambers, each footfall echoing. His chambers, gods, he'd told her to come to his chambers. Like he had any control left. Like he could stand to be in a room with her and not. His wolf snarled. Take her. Claim her. Make her ours. Theron slammed the door behind him and pressed his forehead against the cold wood. This was impossible. Catastrophic. In 3 days, he was supposed to marry Alpha Princess Morgana Silvercrest. The wedding would unite the North Pack and the Eastern Territories, preventing a war that would cost thousands of lives. The alliance was the only thing standing between peace and bloodshed. And his fated mate was a half-starved servant girl who flinched when he spoke. He should reject the bond. Immediately. Completely. It was the logical choice, the right choice. One girl's happiness, one girl's life, against thousands. The math was simple. So why did his wolf bare its teeth at the thought? Why did his hands shake with rage at the memory of those bruises on her arms, the hunger in her eyes? Because she's ours. Thunder cracked again, and Theron watched lightning split the sky. 7 years he'd been frozen. 7 years of nothing, no warmth, no joy, no hope. Just duty and ice and the endless, crushing weight of a crown he never wanted. Then she looked at him with those wide, frightened eyes, and the ice cracked. He thought of Morgana, beautiful, cold, calculating Morgana who smiled like a knife and looked at him like a prize to be won. Who wanted his crown more than she'd ever want him. He thought of Sarah, trembling in the rain, eating stale bread because no one else would feed her. And he felt something shift in his chest. Something dark and possessive and utterly unbreakable. Theron moved to the window, watching rain batter the glass. His reflection stared back, gray eyes that had burned gold for the first time in 7 years. She's mine, he whispered to the storm. To the gods. To anyone listening. His voice dropped, cold and certain and edged with something dangerous. And I will burn this world down before I let anyone take her. In the servants' quarters below, Sarah huddled under a thin blanket, listening to thunder roll across the mountains. She didn't know that her life had just changed forever. She didn't know that the cold king's heart had finally started beating again. And she didn't know that tomorrow, when she walked into his chambers, she would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the North Pack. All she knew was that for one impossible moment in the rain, the most feared man in the kingdom had looked at her like she mattered. Like she was something worth protecting. The thought kept her warm through the cold, dark night. Chapter 2. Sarah hadn't slept. How could she, knowing that at dawn she'd be summoned to the cold king's chambers? The other servants whispered all night, hushed, excited whispers that carried through the thin walls of the servants' quarters like poison. Finally caught doing something. Bet she stole from the kitchens. No, I heard she insulted Lady Cordelia. Doesn't matter what she did. Nobody gets called to the king's chambers and comes back. Lila, the only servant who'd ever shown Sarah a shred of kindness, gripped her hand in the darkness. Maybe it's not what we think. But her voice trembled. They both knew better. When the first gray light of dawn crept through the narrow window, Sarah rose and dressed in her cleanest dress, which wasn't saying much. The gray wool was patched at the elbows, the hem frayed. She braided her dark hair with shaking fingers and stared at her reflection in the cloudy mirror. This might be the last time she saw her own face. The thought should have terrified her more than it did. But after 3 years of this, 3 years of being the castle's favorite target, of working herself to exhaustion while everyone else ate, of wearing her father's sins like a brand on her forehead, part of her was just tired. Sarah Whitlock. She turned. Marcus, the king's beta, stood in the doorway. His scarred face was unreadable, but his eyes held something that might have been pity. It's time. The walk through the castle felt like a funeral march. Servants pressed themselves against walls as she passed, some making warding signs like she carried plague. The castle was waking up, fires being lit, floors being scrubbed, the machine of the royal household grinding to life. Sarah had been part of that machine for 3 years. 3 years since her father's execution. 3 years since she'd been dragged from their small cottage and told she could either work for the crown or starve. She'd chosen wrong. She should have starved. They climbed the East Tower, higher than Sarah had ever been allowed. These were the royal chambers, the private domain of the king and his inner circle. Thick carpets muffled their footsteps. Tapestries worth more than Sarah would earn in 10 lifetimes hung on stone walls. Morning light streamed through tall windows, painting everything gold. Beautiful. This whole castle was beautiful. Sarah had always hated it. Marcus stopped at a heavy oak door. He knocked once, then pushed it open. "The girl, Your Majesty." "Leave us." Marcus hesitated, just a fraction of a second, then bowed and retreated. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a death sentence. Sarah forced herself to look up. King Theron stood by the window, silhouetted against the morning light. He'd changed since last night, gone was the rain-soaked king from the storm. Now he wore black from head to toe, immaculately tailored, every inch the cold king from the stories. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp angles of his face. He didn't look at her. "Do you know why you're here?" His voice was glacier smooth, empty of inflection. "No, Your Majesty." "No?" Finally, he turned. Those gray eyes locked onto her, and Sarah's breath caught. They weren't gold now, no sign of whatever madness had seized him in the rain. Just cold, assessing gray. You have no idea what offense you might have committed. Sarah's mind raced. Yesterday's bread? Being in the wrong place? Breathing wrong? I ate food that wasn't mine. I'll work extra shifts to pay for it. I'll stop. He moved closer, each step measured. Tell me about your father. The world tilted. Nobody talked about her father. Not to her face. Behind her back, yes, whispered insults and muttered curses, but never directly. It was like the whole castle had agreed to let her suffer in silence for his crimes. Your Majesty, His name was Roland Whitlock. Beta to my father's court. Theron's voice stayed neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. 12 years ago, he sold military intelligence to the Southern rebels. 23 of our warriors died in an ambush because of information he provided. He was executed for treason when you were, what? 13? 12. The words scraped out of her throat. I was 12. And you've been here for 3 years, working as a servant to pay your family's debt to the crown. It wasn't a question. Why didn't you run? After your father died, you could have disappeared. Gone rogue. Hidden in human cities. Because she'd tried. Because she'd made it as far as the border before hunters dragged her back, telling her that her debt wasn't paid. That she'd work for the castle until the king decided otherwise, or she'd die trying to escape. But she didn't say that. She lifted her chin and met his eyes. Because I'm not a coward like my father was. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. Then something shifted in Theron's expression, something that might have been respect. No, he said quietly. You're not. He turned away, moving to a desk piled with papers. You'll be reassigned. No more kitchen work. Hope flickered in Sarah's chest, small and painful. Your Majesty. The head housekeeper will find new duties for you. Something more suitable. He picked up a quill, studying it like it held secrets. That's all. Thank you, Your Majesty. Don't thank me yet. His voice dropped, cold sliding back into place. And Sarah? Stay out of trouble. It was a dismissal. She should leave. Should bow and retreat and thank the gods she wasn't being executed. But her mouth opened anyway. Your Majesty, last night, your eyes. You were mistaken. The words cracked like ice. The storm. The shadows. You saw nothing. But I. Nothing. The command hit her like a physical blow. Her wolf whimpered, that pathetic, broken thing that had never been strong enough to protect her from anything. She bowed her head and fled. Theron waited until the door closed before he let himself breathe. 3 years. She'd been here for 3 years, right under his nose, and he'd never noticed. Never bothered to learn the story behind the quiet maid who moved through his castle like a ghost. Roland Whitlock's daughter. His wolf snarled at the memory. Roland had been his father's beta, trusted and valued, until the day they discovered his betrayal. Theron had been 16 when they'd executed the traitor in the castle courtyard. He remembered the man's daughter, a small, silent girl who'd stood in the crowd, not crying, just empty. He'd forgotten her. And now she was his mate. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Ours, his wolf insisted. Protect her. Claim her. She's ours. She's a complication, Theron said aloud. Nothing more. His wolf's response was a feral snarl that made his chest ache. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Enter. Marcus stepped inside, his expression grim. The princess's caravan was spotted an hour from the castle. She'll arrive by midday. Morgana. His future wife. The alliance that would prevent war. Theron's hands curled into fists. Good. Make sure everything is ready for her arrival. Your Majesty. Marcus hesitated. About the girl. What about her? The servants are saying you showed her mercy. That you're changing. Then the servants are fools. Theron's voice could have frozen fire. I reassigned one maid. That's hardly evidence of a personality transplant. Of course, Your Majesty. But Marcus's eyes said he didn't believe it. Though I should mention, head housekeeper Maris wasn't pleased with the reassignment order. Theron's attention sharpened. Why would she care about one servant? Maris has been particularly hard on the Whitlock girl. Some say she takes pleasure in it. Then perhaps Maris needs a reminder about who runs this castle. Marcus bowed and left. Theron returned to the window, watching servants scurry across the courtyard below like ants. He shouldn't care. Couldn't afford to care. Sarah was a complication, a distraction from duties that would crush him if he let his focus slip. But his wolf wouldn't stop howling. And somewhere deep in his frozen heart, something warm kept burning. You'll be polishing the silver for the engagement celebration. Head housekeeper Maris stood in the doorway of the silver room, her thin lips curved in what might have been a smile on a kinder face. On hers, it looked like a threat. Sarah stared at the mountains of tarnished silver piled on tables. Serving platters, candelabras, utensils, hundreds of pieces, all needing to be polished to perfection before the princess arrived. All of it? Her voice came out smaller than she'd meant it to. Did I stutter? Maris's smile widened. The king wants everything perfect for his bride. You have until sundown. And Sarah? She leaned closer, her breath sour. If even one piece isn't spotless, you'll regret it. The door closed. Locked from the outside. Sarah stood there, staring at the work before her. Impossible. Even with help from other servants, this would take days. Alone, working non-stop. Her hands were already raw from scrubbing floors this morning. Her back ached from carrying water up 4 flights of stairs. She hadn't eaten since yesterday's stale bread. But she picked up the first tarnished platter and got to work. Theron found himself in the east corridor 3 times that morning. There was no reason for him to be there. His study was in the west wing. The throne room was south. The training grounds were outside entirely. But the east corridor overlooked the silver room's windows. He told himself he was just passing through. That the route was more efficient. That he wasn't specifically looking for a glimpse of dark hair bent over polishing silver. His wolf laughed at the lies. Through the narrow window, he could see her. Working steadily, methodically, even though her hands shook with exhaustion. She didn't stop. Didn't complain. Just kept polishing, piece after piece, like she could make herself invisible through sheer determination. Something in his chest cracked a little wider. Admiring the view, Your Majesty. Theron spun. Lady Cordelia, one of Morgana's ladies-in-waiting who'd arrived early, stood behind him. Beautiful, blonde, and sharp as a blade. Just inspecting the preparations, he said coolly. Of course. Her smile was knowing. Though I must say, that's quite a lot of work for one girl. One might almost think someone was trying to break her. Then one would be mistaken. Would one? Cordelia moved to the window, looking down at Sarah. Roland Whitlock's daughter. Such a tragic story. And now she serves in the very castle where her father was executed. Poetic, really. Theron's voice dropped to lethal quiet. Do you have a point, Lady Cordelia? Only that the princess values loyalty above all else. And some might question the loyalty of a girl whose father was a traitor. She turned those calculating eyes on him. But I'm sure Your Majesty has already considered that. She glided away, leaving Theron standing there, rage simmering under his skin. His wolf wanted blood. Protect her, it snarled. They're hunting our mate. She's not, Theron caught himself. She's not mine to protect. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. The silver room had no windows to show time passing. No way to know if hours had passed or days. Sarah's world narrowed to the rhythm of polish and cloth, tarnish and shine. Her hands bled. Small cuts from sharp edges, blisters from gripping the cloth too tight. She wrapped them in torn pieces of her underskirt and kept working. She was maybe halfway through when the door unlocked. Maris entered with 2 other servants, girls who'd made Sarah's life hell for 3 years. They carried a massive candelabra between them, so heavy they struggled under its weight. "One more piece," Maris announced. "This needs to be cleaned and mounted on the wall before sundown." Sarah looked up at the wall mounting. 12 feet high. No ladder in sight. "How am I supposed to figure it out?" Maris's smile was vicious. "Or don't. I'm sure the king won't mind one more trader's daughter disappearing." They left. The door locked again. Sarah stared at the candelabra, then at the wall mounting. There was a decorative shelf she could use to climb up. It looked stable enough. Probably. She was so tired. Her hands screamed with pain. Her vision blurred at the edges. But she picked up the candelabra anyway. The climb was precarious. The shelf wobbled under her weight. She got the candelabra up, arms trembling, and reached for the wall mounting. The shelf gave way. Sarah fell backward, the candelabra falling with her. Time slowed. She saw the floor rushing up, saw the massive iron candelabra spinning toward her head. This was it. This was how she'd die. Not executed like her father, but broken in a locked room, killed by a tragic accident. The door exploded inward. Strong arms caught her mid-fall. The candelabra crashed to the floor inches from where her head would have been. And Sarah found herself pressed against a chest that smelled like pine and winter storms. King Theron held her, his heart hammering against her cheek. "Breathe," he commanded, and she did, gasping in air she didn't realize she'd been holding. His arms tightened around her. For just a moment, one perfect, impossible moment, she felt safe. Then he pulled back, and his eyes were blazing gold. Not gray. Gold. Like fire and fury and something wild trying to break free. "Who gave you this task?" His voice came out rough, barely human. "I. Head housekeeper Maris, Your Majesty." "Marcus." Theron's roar shook dust from the rafters. His beta appeared in the doorway, sword drawn. "Find Maris. Bring her to the throne room. Now." "Your Majesty, what?" Marcus saw Sarah in the king's arms, saw the fallen candelabra, and his expression hardened. Immediately. Theron looked down at Sarah. His hands, still holding her, trembled slightly. "Did she lock you in?" Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Something dangerous flickered across his face. He lifted her easily, cradling her against his chest like she weighed nothing, and carried her out of the silver room. Servants scattered. Courtiers froze. Everyone stared as the cold king, who never touched anyone, who showed no emotion, who barely acknowledged servants existed, carried a bleeding maid through the castle halls like she was made of glass. Sarah wanted to disappear. Wanted to sink through the floor and never resurface. "Your Majesty, I can walk." "Please, everyone's looking." "Let them look." He kicked open a door to a private sitting room and set her down on a velvet couch that probably cost more than her life. Then he knelt, the king, kneeling, and took her bleeding hands in his. "This never happens again." It wasn't a request. "Do you understand me?" "I don't. I don't understand any of this." Tears pricked her eyes, exhaustion, pain, confusion, all of it crashing down at once. "Why do you care?" "I'm nothing. I'm the daughter of a traitor. I'm broken. I can't even shift properly. You're what?" His eyes sharpened. "What do you mean you can't shift?" She shouldn't have said that. That was her deepest secret, the shame she'd carried since childhood. But she was so tired, and he was looking at her like she mattered, and the words spilled out. My wolf is broken. Has been since I was 8. I can feel her, but she won't, she can't. Sarah's voice cracked. I'm defective, Your Majesty. The lowest of the low. That's why Maris gives me the worst tasks. Why everyone treats me like dirt. Because I am dirt. I'm a broken wolf with a traitor's blood, and I don't understand why you're being kind to me when you should just let me die. Silence. Terrible, crushing silence. Then Theron cupped her face in his hands, gentle, so impossibly gentle, and forced her to meet his eyes. You listen to me, he said, and his voice carried absolute conviction. You are not broken. You are not dirt. And anyone who treats you as less than you are will answer to me. But. No. His thumb brushed away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. No more. You're done being their target. Your Majesty, I don't. The door burst open. A woman swept into the room, tall, blonde, beautiful in a way that made Sarah feel like a smudge of dirt. She wore traveling clothes that probably cost a kingdom, and her ice blue eyes took in the scene with predatory awareness. Princess Morgana Silvercrest. Theron's bride-to-be. Her gaze moved from Theron, still kneeling, still holding Sarah's face, to Sarah herself. Something cold and calculating flickered across her perfect features. Theron, darling, she purred, her voice honey and poison mixed. I arrived early and heard the most fascinating commotion. Tell me. Her smile sharpened. Who is this? Theron stood slowly. His hands dropped from Sarah's face, but he positioned himself between her and Morgana like a shield. A servant, he said, his voice sliding back into ice. There was an accident. How fortunate you were there to save her. Morgana's eyes glittered. You always did have impeccable timing. The tension in the room was suffocating. Sarah pressed herself into the couch, trying to become invisible. I'll have the physicians see to her injuries, Theron said. If you'll excuse me. Of course. Morgana moved closer, her smile never wavering. We have so much to discuss about the wedding. Only 2 days away now. She reached out, trailing one perfectly manicured finger down his chest. I can hardly wait to be your wife. Theron's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Morgana swept out, taking the warmth from the room with her. Theron stood there, staring at the door, his hands clenched into fists. Your Majesty. Sarah's voice came out small. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I'll go back to my quarters, Anne. No. He turned, and his eyes were gray again, but something burned behind them. You'll go to the East Wing. You're being reassigned to the private quarters. And Sarah? He moved closer, his voice dropping low. Stay away from the princess. She's dangerous. More dangerous than you? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Theron's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Much more dangerous. Because unlike me. He paused at the door, looking back at her with those unreadable eyes. She actually enjoys causing pain. Then he was gone, leaving Sarah alone in a room too beautiful for someone like her, her hands still bleeding, her heart hammering against her ribs. 2 days. In 2 days, the Cold King would marry Princess Morgana. And Sarah would go back to being invisible. Except, something had changed. Something fundamental and irreversible. She'd seen his eyes turn gold. Felt his arms around her. Heard the rage in his voice when he'd seen her hurt. Whatever was happening between them, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. And somewhere in the castle, Princess Morgana stood at a window, watching snow begin to fall, and smiled like a wolf that had just scented blood. Chapter 3. The ballroom glittered like something from a fever dream. Sarah had never seen anything like it. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, each one holding 100 candles that turned the room into liquid gold. The marble floors had been polished until they reflected the dancers like dark water. Silks and satins swirled in a kaleidoscope of colors as the nobility of two kingdoms celebrated the union that would prevent war. And Sarah stood in the shadows with a tray of wine, watching her mate dance with another woman. The bond had snapped into place 3 hours ago. She'd been in the East Wing, her new quarters, which consisted of an actual bed and a window that didn't leak, when it hit. Like lightning striking her chest, like her soul recognizing its other half. The incomplete feeling she'd carried her whole life suddenly made sense. The broken pieces clicked together. Theron Blackfrost was her mate. The Cold King. The man who'd saved her. The man who would marry Princess Morgana in 2 days. Her mate, who would never be hers. Sarah's hands trembled as she refilled wine glasses, trying to stay invisible. Her wolf, that pathetic, broken thing, was howling inside her chest. Not the strong, clear call of a healthy wolf, but a desperate, keening sound like a wounded animal. Mate. Our mate. He's ours. Except he wasn't. Couldn't be. On the dance floor, Theron moved with the same cold precision he brought to everything. Princess Morgana draped herself against him, all golden hair and perfect curves, smiling up at him like she'd won a prize. Her ice blue gown matched her eyes, calculated, Sarah realized. Everything about Morgana was calculated. Theron's face showed nothing. No warmth, no emotion. Just that blank, frozen mask he wore like armor. But Sarah had seen beneath it. Had seen his eyes flash gold, felt his arms around her, heard the rage in his voice when she'd nearly died. That made it worse. So much worse. More wine, girl. Sarah jumped, nearly dropping her tray. An older nobleman held out his glass, not bothering to look at her. Just another servant. Invisible. She poured, her hands steady through sheer force of will. The music swelled. Morgana laughed, a bright, tinkling sound that carried across the ballroom. She said something to Theron, trailing her fingers down his chest in a possessive gesture that made Sarah's wolf snarl. Ours. Not hers. Ours. Quiet, Sarah whispered to herself. To her wolf. To the universe that seemed determined to torture her. She shouldn't have come. Should have claimed illness, should have hidden in her quarters, should have. Theron's eyes found hers across the ballroom. Just for a second. One heartbeat. But his gray eyes locked onto her with such intensity that Sarah forgot how to breathe. The mask cracked, just slightly, and she saw hunger there. Desperation. Need. Then Morgana pulled his attention back, and the moment shattered. Sarah turned away, blinking back tears. This was foolish. She was being foolish. He was a king. She was the daughter of a traitor, a broken wolf, nothing and no one. The mate bond was just biology. It didn't mean destiny. It didn't mean love. It just meant pain. Sarah Whitlock. The voice cut through the music like a blade. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Princess Morgana stood 5 feet away, having apparently finished her dance. Up close, she was even more beautiful, flawless skin, perfect features, the kind of beauty that made other women feel like mistakes. Her smile was all teeth. Your Highness. Sarah curtsied, keeping her eyes down. Every instinct screamed danger. I've heard so much about you. Morgana circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. The traitor's daughter. The broken wolf. And yet. Her voice dropped, venomous. My betrothed seems quite concerned with your welfare. I don't know what you mean, Your Highness. Don't you? Morgana stopped in front of her. Tell me, how does a lowly servant warrant the personal attention of the Cold King? How does she end up in his arms, in a private sitting room, with his hands on her face? Sarah's heart hammered. Of course Morgana had noticed. Of course she had. It was an accident, Your Highness. I fell, and His Majesty. His Majesty what? Rushed to save you? Morgana's laugh was like breaking glass. How romantic. How utterly suspicious. The ballroom had gone quiet. People were watching now, sensing drama. Morgana's smile widened. She raised her voice, making sure everyone could hear. You know, in my kingdom, clumsy servants are punished. Perhaps I should demonstrate our customs? She grabbed the wine tray from Sarah's hands and tilted it. The contents spilled down Sarah's dress, red wine like blood, soaking through the gray fabric. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Oh dear. Morgana's eyes glittered with malice. How clumsy of you. Now you've ruined your dress and made a mess of the floor. She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper only Sarah could hear. Kneel. Apologize. And maybe I'll let you keep your miserable life. Sarah's wolf snarled, but what could she do? Fight a princess? In front of 2 kingdoms? She sank to her knees, wine-soaked and humiliated, her eyes burning with unshed tears. I apologize for my clumsiness, Your Highness. Louder. Morgana's heel pressed against Sarah's hand, subtle, but painful. So everyone can hear how sorry you are. Sarah drew breath to comply. To debase herself one more time. To survive. Stop. One word. Quiet, cold, absolute. The entire ballroom froze. King Theron Blackfrost stood 10 feet away, and his eyes were blazing gold. Not gray. Not controlled. Gold as molten sun, burning with rage that made the air itself feel dangerous. Remove your foot from her hand, Morgana. His voice could have frozen fire. Now. Morgana's smile faltered. Theron, darling, I was just. Now. The alpha command cracked through the ballroom like thunder. Morgana flinched and stepped back, her perfect composure slipping for just a moment. Theron moved forward, each step measured and deadly. He stopped in front of Sarah, still kneeling on the wine-stained floor, and held out his hand. Get up. Sarah stared at his hand like it was a trap. Your Majesty, That's an order. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, gentle, so impossibly gentle, and he pulled her to her feet. For a moment, they stood there, close enough that Sarah could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the gold fire in his eyes. The mate bond sang between them. She knew he felt it too. Knew it by the way his jaw tightened, the way his hand trembled slightly in hers. Go to your quarters, he said quietly. Have the healers look at your hand. But Go, Sarah. His thumb brushed across her knuckles once, a gesture so brief she might have imagined it. Then he released her and turned to face the ballroom. The crowd parted. Sarah fled, feeling hundreds of eyes on her back. Behind her, she heard Morgana's voice, sharp with fury. That was quite a display, darling. Over a servant? Touch her again, Theron replied, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom, and you'll discover exactly how cold I can be. Sarah didn't wait to hear more. She ran. The rest of the ball passed in a blur of whispers and speculation. Theron danced. Made small talk. Smiled his empty smile and played the role of the perfect, emotionless king. Inside, his wolf was tearing him apart. Our mate. They heard our mate. Kill them. Kill them all. You're making a scene over a servant. Morgana's voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes were chips of ice. People are talking. Let them talk. My father certainly will. She took his arm as they moved through the crowd. He's very interested in your unusual behavior. As if summoned, Alpha King Corvus Silvercrest appeared. Tall, broad, with silver hair and eyes like winter storms. He radiated power, the kind that came from ruling through fear and violence. King Theron. Corvus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Quite an evening. I wonder if we might speak privately? It wasn't a request. They retreated to Theron's study, him, Morgana, Corvus, and Marcus. The door closed, sealing them in. Let's speak plainly, Corvus said, pouring himself whiskey without asking. You're developing feelings for a servant. I'm not. Don't lie to me, boy. Corvus's voice hardened. I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive. You looked at that girl like she was oxygen and you were drowning. Theron's hands clenched. My personal feelings are irrelevant. The alliance stands. Do they? Morgana moved closer, her voice soft and dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, you just publicly humiliated me to defend a traitor's daughter. That doesn't exactly inspire confidence in our upcoming marriage. I stopped you from abusing a servant. That's hardly. She's not just a servant though, is she? Corvus interrupted. She's your mate. Silence. Crushing, terrible silence. Theron's wolf snarled, but he kept his face blank. I don't know what you're. We know about the curse, Theron. Morgana's smile was victorious. The witch who silenced your wolf 7 years ago. We found her. Or rather, we found her daughter after dear mama died. And she told us everything. Ice spread through Theron's veins. What did she tell you? That you can't shift, Corvus said bluntly. That your wolf is dormant, locked away by blood magic. That you're half alive, slowly dying from the inside out. He leaned forward. But she also told us the cure. Want to know what it is? Theron didn't answer. Couldn't. A mate bond, Morgana purred. Specifically, completing a mate bond with someone of royal blood. The magic recognizes power, you see. Responds to it. She traced a finger down his arm. I'm not your fated mate, darling. But I am a princess. And when we complete our bond, your curse will break. Your wolf will return. You'll be whole again. But only if it's me, she continued. Only if it's royal blood. Your little servant girl might be your fated mate, but she can't save you. All she can do is tie you to a broken bond that will slowly kill you both. Theron's mind raced. Was it true? Could Morgana break the curse? Don't care, his wolf growled. Want our mate. Need Sarah. There's more, Corvus said, his voice hardening. If you break this engagement, if you choose that servant over my daughter, I'll consider it an act of war. The southern territories will march on the North Pack within a month. Thousands will die. He smiled, cold as death. But I'm sure your little maid is worth a war, isn't she? Father. Morgana's voice held warning. Let me handle this. She moved close to Theron, her hand on his chest. I know you don't love me. I don't love you either. But we can give each other what we need. I get a kingdom. You get your wolf back. And everyone lives. Her smile sharpened. The girl can even stay in the castle if you want. As long as she knows her place. Theron looked at her, really looked. At the calculation in her eyes, the absolute certainty that she'd won. And he realized the trap had been set long before tonight. They'd researched the curse, found the cure, maneuvered him into a corner. Morgana was offering him everything, his wolf, his strength, peace for his kingdom. All he had to do was give up his mate. I need time to think, he said finally. You have until tomorrow night, Corvus replied. The wedding proceeds as planned, or we go to war. He moved to the door, then paused. Oh, and Theron? I'd suggest keeping that servant girl under close watch. Accidents happen so easily in busy castles. The threat hung in the air like poison. When they left, Marcus exploded. They're blackmailing you. We can't let them. I know what they're doing. Theron collapsed into his chair, suddenly exhausted. But they're not wrong. If I break the engagement, people die. If I complete the bond with Sarah. He couldn't finish the sentence. The curse wins, Marcus said quietly. You both die slowly, and the kingdom still falls into war. Exactly. There has to be another way. If there is, I haven't found it. Theron stared at his hands. Get word to Sarah. Tell her to come here tonight. After midnight, when the castle sleeps. Your Majesty, is that wise? Probably not. Theron's smile was bitter. But I'm going to tell her the truth. She deserves that much. Sarah almost didn't go. The summons came via a young page boy who looked terrified to be delivering it. The king requests your presence in his study at midnight. Come alone. Tell no one. Every instinct screamed trap. But the mate bond pulled at her like a physical chain, and she found herself climbing the tower stairs as the castle bells tolled 12. Theron stood by the window, backlit by moonlight. He turned when she entered, and his eyes were gray again, but tired. So impossibly tired. You came. You commanded it, Your Majesty. Don't. He moved closer. Don't call me that. Not right now. Not here. Then what should I call you? Theron. The name sounded strange on his lips, like he'd forgotten it was his. Just. Theron. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. Why did you summon me? Because you're my mate. He said it simply, like it was a fact. Like it changed everything and nothing. You felt it too, didn't you? The bond. She should lie. Should protect herself. But she was so tired of lying. Yes. When? This evening. During the ball. Her voice cracked. Right before I had to watch you dance with her. Something passed across his face, pain, maybe. Regret. Sarah, I need you to understand. I do understand. She lifted her chin. You're a king. She's a princess. I'm nobody. The bond doesn't matter because you can't choose me. You won't choose me. It's not that simple. Isn't it? Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You felt the bond snap into place, and you're still going to marry her. That tells me everything I need to know. You're right, he said quietly. I am going to marry her. But not because I want to. Because if I don't, your kingdom goes to war. Because she might be able to break my curse when you can't. Because. Stop. Sarah held up a hand. Just stop. I don't need your explanations. I don't need your guilt. She moved toward the door. The bond was a mistake. Biology, nothing more. You'll marry your princess, break your curse, save your kingdom. And I'll. She swallowed hard. I'll survive. Like I always do. Sarah, wait. What? She spun back, and the tears finally fell. What do you want from me? You want me to say it's okay? That I understand? I do understand, but that doesn't make it hurt less. You're my mate, and I'm losing you before I ever had you, and I just. Her voice broke. I just need you to let me go. I can't. The words tore out of him. Gods help me, I can't. Every instinct I have says to claim you. To mark you. To damn the consequences and keep you. But you won't. But I won't. His hands clenched into fists. Because I'm a king before I'm a man. Because duty matters more than desire. Because. A knock interrupted them. Marcus burst through the door, his face pale. Your Majesty, there's something you need to see. He held out a letter. Sarah recognized it immediately, the same rough paper, the same handwriting as the 3 letters she'd been receiving over the past week. Letters she'd told no one about. Theron read aloud, if the king does not marry Princess Morgana, Sarah Whitlock's brother dies. He lives only as long as the alliance stands. Interfere with the wedding, and you'll never find his body. His eyes snapped to her. Brother? I thought. He died. Sarah's voice came from far away. Thomas died 10 years ago. Fever. I watched him. She grabbed the letter, staring at the words. This is impossible. Show me the others, Theron commanded. How did you know there were others? Because whoever sent this knows too much. Show me. Sarah pulled the other letters from her pocket. She'd carried them everywhere, terrified and confused and not knowing who to trust. Theron read them all, his face darkening with each word. They've been threatening you, he said finally. Using your brother, or the possibility of your brother, to ensure you don't interfere with the wedding. But Thomas is dead. I buried him. Did you see the body? Sarah's mind raced back. 10 years ago. The fever that swept through the servants' quarters after her father's execution. Thomas, her baby brother, only 5 years old. The healers saying he was dead. The burial. She'd never actually seen his body. They'd told her it was too traumatic. That she should remember him as he was. Oh gods. Her legs gave out. Theron caught her before she hit the floor. If he's alive, she whispered, if they've had him all these years. Then we'll find him. Theron's voice was steel. I swear to you, Sarah. We'll. The window shattered. Glass exploded inward. Theron twisted, shielding Sarah with his body. Something whistled through the air, a crossbow bolt that would have hit Sarah's heart if Theron hadn't moved. It hit her shoulder instead. Silver-tipped. Sarah screamed as fire erupted through her veins. Silver, deadly to werewolves. Already spreading through her bloodstream. Theron roared, and his eyes blazed gold. Marcus was shouting orders. Guards poured into the room. But Sarah only saw Theron's face above her as darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. Stay with me, he commanded. Sarah, stay with me. Hurts, she gasped. The silver burned like acid, like her blood was boiling. I know, sweetheart. His hands were gentle as he picked her up, even as his voice cracked with fury and fear. Marcus, get the healers. Now. They ran. Sarah bounced against his chest, each movement agony. Voices shouted around her. The world tilted and spun. Theron. His name on her lips tasted like goodbye. The wedding. Your kingdom. You can't. Fuck the kingdom. The words came out savage. You're not dying. Do you hear me? You're not dying. But she could feel it. The silver spreading, shutting down her organs one by one. Her broken wolf whimpered and fell silent. This was it. This was how her story ended. The healers descended. Voices talked over her head. Words like silver poisoning and too much in her system and nothing we can do. There has to be something, Theron snarled. Your Majesty, the only thing that can fight silver poisoning is. The healer stopped, looking stricken. Say it. A mate bond. A completed mate bond floods the body with enough healing magic to counteract the silver. But she'd need to be marked. Claimed. Fully bonded. Sarah tried to speak. Tried to tell him not to. Tried to say it was okay to let her go. But no words came. Theron looked down at her, and his eyes were full of anguish. Full of rage. Full of a desperate, terrible love. If I do this, he said to the room at large, there's no going back. I'll be bound to her forever. The wedding can't happen. Corvus will declare war. His voice dropped. Thousands will die. Your Majesty, Marcus said gently. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Theron's hands cupped her face. Because I finally understand. I've spent 7 years frozen. 7 years being half alive. I thought I was protecting my kingdom. He laughed bitterly. But all I was doing was slowly dying. He leaned close, his forehead touching hers. You asked what I want from you, he whispered. I want forever. I want your laughter and your tears. I want to kill everyone who ever hurt you. I want to watch you heal, watch you grow strong, watch you become everything you're meant to be. His thumb brushed her cheek. I want to be worthy of you. Not worth war, Sarah managed. You're worth everything. His voice was fierce. And I'm done being the cold king. I'm done choosing duty over life. If the kingdom falls. He smiled, and it was real, the first real smile she'd ever seen from him. Then we'll build a new one. Together. He bit into his wrist, drawing blood. This will hurt. The bonding magic has to fight the silver. But I'll be here. Every second. I promise. Sarah tried to shake her head. Tried to stop him. But he pressed his bleeding wrist to her lips, and the world exploded into fire. The mate bond roared to life, not the gentle pull she'd felt before, but a raging inferno that burned through her veins. Magic and silver collided, fighting for dominance. Sarah's back arched. She screamed. Theron held her through it. Whispered her name like a prayer. Let his blood, his magic, his very soul, flow into her. And slowly, impossibly, the silver retreated. When Sarah could breathe again, when the world stopped spinning, she opened her eyes. Theron's wrist was against her mouth. His blood on her lips. The mate bond complete and unbreakable between them. Hi, he said softly. Welcome back. Sarah stared at him. At the gold in his eyes. At the smile on his face. At the beautiful, terrible thing he'd just done. You chose me, she whispered. I chose us. He pulled her close, and she felt his heart beating against hers, strong and steady and alive. And now we deal with the consequences together. The door slammed open. Princess Morgana stood there, her face twisted with rage. Behind her, Alpha King Corvus. Behind him, armed guards. You fool, Morgana hissed. You've killed us all. Theron stood, placing himself between Sarah and the threat. His eyes blazed gold, and for the first time in 7 years, Sarah felt his wolf rise, strong, powerful, fully awakened. No, he said, his voice carrying the weight of alpha command. I've finally started living. And as dawn broke over the castle, war came with it. Chapter 4. The bond settled into Sarah's bones like coming home. She could feel him, not just nearby, but inside her consciousness. His heartbeat matched hers. His emotions bled into her awareness, rage at Morgana, fear for Sarah, fierce protectiveness that made her wolf, finally, blessedly awake, purr with satisfaction. Her wolf. Gods, she had her wolf back. Hello, the voice whispered in her mind, feminine, strong, nothing like the broken whimper she'd carried for years. I've been waiting. Sarah didn't have time to process the miracle. Not with Morgana's face twisted in fury, not with armed guards filling the doorway, not with Theron standing between her and violence with his eyes blazing gold. You've signed your kingdom's death warrant, Corvus said, his voice cold as midwinter. For a servant. For my mate. Theron's hand found Sarah's without looking. For my Luna Queen. The words hit like a bomb. Luna Queen. Not servant. Not the traitor's daughter. Queen. Morgana laughed, high and sharp and breaking at the edges. Luna Queen? Her? She's nothing. She can't even shift. Can't I? The words came from Sarah's mouth, but the voice was layered, her own and something ancient beneath it. Power thrummed through her veins, different from before. Not broken. Not weak. Show them, her wolf whispered. Show them what we are. Sarah stood on shaking legs. The silver wound in her shoulder was already healing, the mate bond's magic knitting flesh and bone. She met Morgana's ice-blue eyes and smiled. "You took my wolf from me." The certainty settled into Sarah's chest like truth. "When I was 8 years old. The same magic you used to curse Theron, you used it on me first. Didn't you?" Morgana's face went carefully blank. "I don't know what you're—" "Yes, you do." Theron's voice was deadly quiet. 7 years ago, I woke up one morning and couldn't feel my wolf. I thought it was a curse from a witch I'd wronged. But it was you." His eyes narrowed. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since before we met," Sarah said, pieces clicking together. "My father, he found out, didn't he? That's why he was killed. Not for treason. For discovering your plot." The room went silent. Roland Whitlock was investigating unusual magic signatures in the castle, Sarah continued, her voice strengthening. "He took his findings to the king, Theron's father. And the next day, he was accused of treason and executed before he could speak." "That's a lovely fairy tale," Morgana said sweetly. "But you have no proof." "Don't I?" Marcus stepped forward, holding a leather journal. "We found this in the old Beta's quarters. Hidden in a wall cavity. It details everything, the dark magic, the suspicious deaths, the manipulation." His eyes hardened. "Including orders that came directly from the Silvercrest family to silence Roland Whitlock permanently." Corvus's expression didn't change, but his hand moved to his sword. "You've been orchestrating this for a decade," Theron said, putting the pieces together. "You cursed me to make me cold. To make me need you. You killed Sarah's father to hide the evidence. You used dark magic to break Sarah's wolf so she'd be helpless." His voice dropped to a growl. "How deep does this go?" "Deep enough." Morgana's mask finally cracked. "Did you really think the alliance was coincidence? That your father's sudden heart failure wasn't convenient timing? That the Southern Rebellion didn't have help from within your own borders?" She smiled, vicious and triumphant. "I've been moving pieces since I was 15 years old. Building toward this." "Why?" Sarah asked. "Why go to such lengths?" "Because prophecy demanded it." Morgana's eyes glittered with madness. "The white wolf Luna would rise in the north," they said. "She would unite the kingdoms and end the Silvercrest reign. So I found her, a little girl with silver-white fur who didn't even know what she was, and I broke her." She gestured at Sarah. "I broke you before you could become a threat." The words hung in the air like poison. White Wolf Luna. Ancient bloodline. Prophecy. Sarah's wolf stirred, and suddenly she understood. The broken feeling hadn't been weakness, it had been a cage. Magic suppressing her true nature. And now the cage was shattered. "Kill them both," Corvus ordered. "And burn the journal." Guards surged forward. Theron's wolf exploded outward, not a full shift, but raw power that sent guards flying. Marcus drew his sword. More guards poured into the room. And Sarah felt her wolf rise for the first time in 14 years. "Yes," the ancient voice whispered. "Finally. Finally." The shift happened in a heartbeat. One moment Sarah was human. The next, she was wolf, but not like any wolf the castle had seen. Her fur was pure white, gleaming like fresh snow. She was larger than a normal she-wolf, more powerful. And her eyes burned with silver fire. The room froze. "Impossible," Morgana whispered. "I killed that bloodline. I killed them all." "You missed one," Sarah's wolf said, and her voice carried through the mate bond to Theron. "My mother hid me. Gave me to a Beta family to raise. Died keeping the secret." Sarah, the white wolf, bared her teeth at Morgana. And attacked. The fight was chaos. Morgana shifted into a golden wolf, beautiful and deadly. They collided mid-air, fangs and claws tearing. But Sarah's wolf was stronger, fueled by years of suppression finally breaking free, by rage at stolen childhood, by the mate bond's singing power through her veins. Around them, the room erupted. Theron fought in human form, using blade and raw alpha dominance to hold back Corvus's guards. Marcus guarded his back. Blood splattered ancient stone floors. Sarah pinned Morgana, jaws closing around her throat. One bite. That's all it would take. Do it, her wolf snarled. End her. But then she heard it, a voice, young and male and achingly familiar. Sarah? She froze. Turned. A boy stood in the doorway. 17, maybe 18. Dark hair. Gray eyes. And a face she'd know anywhere, even though she'd last seen it on a 5-year-old. Thomas? Her brother. Her baby brother, who was supposed to be dead. He wore Silvercrest colors. Carried a Silvercrest blade. And his eyes held confusion and something that looked like hate. You're supposed to be the traitor's daughter, he said slowly. The one who let our father die. Who abandoned me. Sarah's heart shattered. She shifted back to human, not caring about nudity, not caring about the battle raging around them. Thomas, no. I thought you were dead. They told me. They told me the truth. His voice hardened. That you and father betrayed the kingdom. That you deserved to suffer. Princess Morgana saved me. Raised me. Gave me purpose. He raised his blade. And now I'm going to repay that debt. He lunged. Theron intercepted, catching the blade on his forearm. Blood welled. Sarah, get back. But Sarah couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Her brother, her baby brother, had been alive all this time. And Morgana had twisted him, shaped him, turned him into a weapon aimed at her heart. Thomas, please. Tears streamed down her face. I'm your sister. I love you. I never stopped. You're nothing to me. But his voice cracked. Just slightly. Morgana, still in wolf form, took advantage of the distraction. She lunged at Theron's exposed back. And Sarah had to choose. Save her brother from Morgana's lies, or save her mate from Morgana's fangs. Both, her wolf said. We save both. Power exploded from Sarah's core, not the mate bond, not pack magic, but something older. Bloodline magic from the white wolf line, ancient and wild and pure. It burst outward in a wave of silver light. Morgana yelped, thrown backward. Thomas dropped his blade, clutching his head. And across the room, something invisible shattered. Sarah felt it, the dark magic that had caged Theron's wolf for 7 years, the spell that had broken her own wolf, the twisted enchantment that had warped Thomas's memories. All of it, unraveling under the white wolf's power. Theron gasped, dropping to his knees. His wolf surged forward, not the partial shift he'd managed before, but full and complete. He shifted in a heartbeat, becoming a massive black wolf with gold eyes. Free. Finally, completely free. Thomas collapsed, hands over his face. I remember. Oh gods, I remember everything. And Morgana screamed. Not in pain, in rage. Her beautiful face twisted into something monstrous as she shifted back to human form. You stupid, ignorant girl. Power crackled around her, dark magic, the kind that tasted like rot and death. Do you have any idea what you've done? That bloodline power was supposed to be mine. The prophecy was supposed to make me queen. She raised her hands, and shadows gathered. If I can't have it, neither can you. The magic lashed out, not at Sarah, but at Thomas. Dark tendrils wrapped around him, lifting him off the ground. He choked, clawing at invisible bonds. Let me make this simple, Morgana hissed. You can save your mate or your brother. Choose. The tendrils tightened. Thomas's face went purple. At the same time, shadows snaked toward Theron, seeking to cage his wolf again. Sarah stood between them, her mate on one side, her brother on the other. Both dying. Choose, Morgana demanded. No. Sarah's voice rang with certainty. I choose both. She'd spent her whole life believing she was broken. Worthless. Too weak to protect anyone. But she wasn't broken. She was a white wolf Luna. And it was time to act like one. Sarah shifted, not the slow transformation of most wolves, but instantaneous. Her white wolf blazed into existence, silver eyes burning with ancient power. She threw back her head and howled. The sound shattered windows. Shook the castle to its foundations. And carried pure, cleansing magic in every note. The shadows attacking Thomas dissolved. The dark magic reaching for Theron evaporated. And Morgana stumbled backward, her stolen power crumbling. No. No. This isn't how it's supposed to. Sarah's wolf leaped. Not to kill, to cleanse. Her jaws closed around Morgana's shoulder, and white wolf magic flooded through the bite. Morgana convulsed. Screamed. The dark magic that had sustained her for years burned away like morning fog, leaving nothing but a sobbing woman on the floor. I was supposed to win, Morgana whispered. The prophecy. I did everything. You misread it. Theron, back in human form, stood over her. Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes were clear and gold and alive. You were never meant to be the white wolf Luna. You were meant to be her catalyst. He looked at Sarah, still in wolf form, still glowing with residual power, and smiled. You needed someone to break you so you could learn to rebuild yourself stronger. Corvus had fled during the chaos, his guards with him. War would still come. The kingdom would still splinter. There would be consequences for everything that had happened tonight. But right now, none of that mattered. Thomas crawled toward Sarah, tears streaming down his face. Sarah? Is it really you? She shifted back, and this time the transformation felt natural. Right. She knelt beside her brother and pulled him into her arms. It's me. I'm here. You're safe. I'm sorry. His voice broke. I believed her lies. I tried to kill you. You were a child. She manipulated you. Sarah held him tighter. None of it was your fault. I thought you abandoned me. Never. I mourned you every single day. They stayed like that, two broken pieces finally reunited, while chaos raged around them. Theron gave them space, issuing orders to Marcus. Lock down the castle. Send word to the border patrols. Prepare for war. All the practical things that needed doing. But his eyes kept drifting back to Sarah. His mate. His Luna. His salvation. When she finally stood, Thomas still clinging to her hand, Theron moved to her side. You saved me, he said quietly. Again. We saved each other. Sarah leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. That's what mates do. Your power. He shook his head in wonder. Sarah, do you understand what you are? The white wolf bloodline hasn't been seen in 300 years. They were the first Lunas, the original werewolf queens. They could unite packs with a thought, heal with a touch, break curses that should have been permanent. I know. And she did. Her wolf's memories were surfacing, showing her glimpses of what her bloodline had been. My mother must have known. That's why she hid me. And now everyone will know. Theron's expression turned grim. Sarah, the moment word spreads that the white wolf Luna has risen, every kingdom will come for you. Some to swear loyalty. Some to claim you. Some to kill you before you become a threat. Let them come. Sarah's voice was steady. I've spent my whole life being afraid. Being small. letting people hurt me because I thought I deserved it. She met his eyes, and her gaze was pure steel. I'm done being a victim. If they want the white wolf Luna, they'll get her. All of her. Theron's smile was fierce and proud. That's my queen. Your Majesty. Marcus appeared, bloodied but alive. The council is demanding an explanation. And... He hesitated. They're calling for Lady Sarah to be tried for causing the war. Of course they were. The old guard would never accept a servant as queen, especially not when her claiming had broken a crucial alliance. Tell the council I'll address them at dawn. Theron's voice carried absolute authority. And anyone who questions my Luna's right to rule can challenge me directly. Let's see how many are brave enough to face an alpha who's finally whole. Marcus bowed and left. Sarah swayed. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Using that much bloodline power had cost her, she could feel it in her bones, in her soul. She'd given everything to break Morgana's spells. Theron caught her before she fell. I've got you, he murmured, lifting her into his arms. Thomas, follow me. We're going somewhere safe. He carried Sarah through corridors that were just beginning to fill with curious, frightened pack members. Whispers followed them, about the White Wolf, the broken engagement, the coming war. Let them whisper. Sarah was too tired to care. Theron took them to his private chambers, the safest place in the castle. He settled Sarah on the bed gently, then gestured for Thomas to sit by the fire. Get some rest, he told them both. Marcus will post guards. You're safe here. Where are you going? Sarah asked, though she could feel through the bond that he had no intention of leaving. Nowhere. Theron sat beside her, taking her hand. I'm exactly where I need to be. Thomas watched them from his chair, his young face still processing everything. You really love her, he said to Theron. It's not just the mate bond. The bond helped me see what was already there. Theron brushed a strand of white hair from Sarah's face. She's been saving me since the moment I found her in the rain. I was just too frozen to notice. The white wolf Luna. Thomas tested the words. My sister is a queen. Your sister has always been worthy of a crown. Theron's voice was firm. The bloodline just proved what I already knew. Sarah's eyes drifted closed. She could feel the mate bond humming between them, stronger now after the completed marking. Could feel her wolf, her beautiful, powerful, finally free wolf, curled contentedly in her chest. And she could feel something else. A pull. A calling. Like her bloodline was reaching out across distances, touching other wolves, other packs. They would come. All of them. But tomorrow. Tomorrow she'd face councils and wars and prophecies. Tonight, she was just Sarah. Held by her mate. Protected by her pack. Reunited with her brother. Theron, she murmured. Yes, love. Thank you. For choosing me. Thank you for being worth choosing. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sleep now. I'll keep watch. And she did, falling into the first peaceful rest she'd had in years. But even in sleep, her wolf stirred. Because deep in the castle, Theron's wolf had whispered something to hers through the bond. Something that changed everything. There's more, he'd said. About why our bond is so powerful. About what the prophecy really means. Sarah's dreams filled with visions, 3 other kingdoms, 3 other wolves, 3 other pieces of a puzzle she didn't yet understand. The white wolf Luna had risen. But her story was just beginning. Dawn broke cold and clear over the North Pack. Sarah stood on the balcony of Theron's chambers, watching the sun paint the mountains gold. Below, the castle was waking, preparing for war, for change, for whatever came next. Theron joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. Through the bond, she felt his contentment mixed with concern. The council will fight your coronation, he said quietly. Corvus has already sent ravens to every kingdom, painting you as a dangerous anomaly. And there are rumors. What rumors? That you're not the only one. His arms tightened. The prophecy my wolf showed you, it's older than our kingdom. Older than recorded history. It speaks of 4 lunas, 4 bloodlines, 4 powers that must unite. Sarah turned in his arms. 4. You're the white wolf, unity and healing. But there's also the red wolf, war and protection. The black wolf, death and rebirth. And the silver wolf, magic and wisdom. Theron's gold eyes held hers. The prophecy says when all 4 rise, they'll either save the werewolf world or destroy it. Where are the others? We don't know. They could be anywhere. Any pack. He cupped her face. But if they exist, if they're out there, every kingdom will be hunting for them. To use them. To control them. To kill them before they become a threat. Then we find them first. Sarah's voice was certain. We find them, and we protect them. Because if I've learned anything, it's that we're stronger together. Theron smiled, that real smile that still took her breath away. That's my queen. A knock interrupted them. Marcus entered, his expression grave. Your Majesty, 3 kingdoms have sent representatives. They've all arrived within the last hour. He paused. They're requesting an audience with the White Wolf Luna. They say it's urgent. Which kingdoms? Theron asked. East Pack, West Mountain, and... Marcus swallowed. The far southern territories. 3 kingdoms. Arriving simultaneously. As if they'd been waiting. As if they'd known this would happen. Sarah looked at Theron, then at the mountains beyond. Somewhere out there, 3 other wolves like her were living their lives. Unaware of what they were. Unaware that everything was about to change. Tell them we'll meet at noon, Sarah said, her voice carrying the authority of a Luna Queen. In the throne room. Full formal court. Are you sure? Theron asked through the bond. You're still recovering. I'm sure, she replied. We can't hide from this. Can't run from what I am. If other Lunas exist, if there's a prophecy to fulfill, then we face it head on. Aloud, she said, let them come. Let them see that the White Wolf Luna doesn't break. Doesn't bow. Doesn't surrender. She looked at Theron, at the mate who'd chosen her over kingdoms. Let them see that I have an alpha who'll burn the world down before he lets anyone take what's his. Theron's answering smile was pure predator. Together then. Together. As the sun climbed higher, Sarah felt her bloodline power stir. Felt it reaching out across impossible distances, searching for kindred spirits. And far away, in 3 different kingdoms, in 3 different packs, 3 wolves felt an answering call in their blood. The White Wolf Luna had risen. And the others would follow. The prophecy had begun. Epilogue, 6 months later. Sarah stood in the newly renovated West Garden, watching Thomas teach a group of young wolves basic combat forms. Her brother had grown in the months since Morgana's defeat, not just physically, but in confidence. The scared, manipulated boy was gone, replaced by a young man finding his purpose. He's doing well, Theron said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. The mate bond hummed contentedly between them, a constant warmth she'd never take for granted. He is. Sarah leaned back against her mate's chest. The nightmares are less frequent now. And he stopped apologizing every time he sees me. Morgana's mental conditioning is breaking down. Give him time. Time. They had that now. After everything. The war everyone predicted never came. Alpha King Corvus had indeed sent his armies north, but something unexpected happened. His own pack rebelled. Turned out, when your people discovered you'd been orchestrating murders and dark magic for a decade, they stopped following orders. Corvus was currently imprisoned in his own dungeons, awaiting trial by a coalition of southern packs who wanted nothing to do with his madness. Morgana had been exiled to a remote island monastery, stripped of her title and power. The dark magic was gone, but it had left her, diminished. Broken in ways that made Sarah almost pity her. Almost. The Eastern delegates are here, Theron murmured against her hair. They brought someone you'll want to meet. Sarah turned in his arms. Who? His smile was mysterious. Come see. They walked through the castle hand in hand, something that still made servants stare and court members whisper. The cold king, warm at last. The trader's daughter, now Luna Queen. A love story that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. The throne room had been transformed. Where once it had been all cold stone and harsh angles, now tapestries hung on the walls. Plants grew in corners. Someone had even convinced Theron to replace the imposing iron throne with something more comfortable. A woman stood in the center of the room, flanked by Eastern guards. She was older, maybe 50, with silver streaking through dark hair. But her eyes were gray, and her face. Sarah's breath caught. You look just like your mother, the woman said softly, tears streaming down her face. Oh, Sarah. My gods, you look just like her. I don't. Sarah's voice failed. Who are you? Your aunt. Your mother's sister. The woman stepped forward, hands trembling. My name is Elena Silverpaw. And I've been searching for you for 18 years. The story spilled out, how Sarah's mother, Lyanna, had been a white wolf Luna in hiding. How she'd married a beta from a different pack to escape those hunting her bloodline. How when Sarah was born and showed signs of the white fur, Lyanna had reached out to her sister Elena, begging her to watch from a distance. To keep Sarah safe. But then your mother died in childbirth with Thomas, Elena said, wiping her eyes. And Roland, your father, he tried to protect both of you alone. When Morgana started investigating magical anomalies in the castle, Roland found her trail. He was trying to expose her when she had him executed. Sarah finished. The final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. My father wasn't a traitor. He was a hero. The best man I ever knew. Elena took Sarah's hands. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd find you and Thomas. But by the time I got to the castle, they told me you'd been sold to a labor camp and Thomas had died of fever. It took me years to discover the truth. Years more to track you here. Why didn't you come sooner? I tried. Multiple times. But Morgana had spies everywhere. Every time I got close, something happened. An accident. A threat. I realized she was watching, waiting for me to lead her to you if you'd survived. Elena's voice broke. So I waited. I stayed away to keep you safe. And I hated myself for it every single day. Sarah pulled her aunt into a fierce embrace. You kept me safe. That's all that matters. I missed so much. Your childhood. Your struggles. I should have. Should-haves don't matter. Sarah pulled back, smiling through tears. You're here now. And I'm not alone anymore. Theron cleared his throat. There's more. Elena nodded, composing herself. The Eastern Kingdom wants to offer an alliance. Not through marriage, she added quickly, seeing Sarah's expression. Through recognition. We want to formally acknowledge you as the White Wolf Luna and pledge our support. Why? Sarah asked. What do you gain? Hope. An older man stepped forward, the Eastern Alpha King. For too long, our packs have been fractured. Suspicious. At war. But the White Wolf bloodline was meant to unite us. To remind us that we're stronger together than apart. He bowed, actually bowed, to Sarah. We don't want to control you, Luna Queen. We want to follow you. Over the next week, 2 more kingdoms sent delegations with similar offers. The West Mountain Pack. The coastal territories. All wanting to ally with the White Wolf Luna. Not to use her. To support her. The prophecy about 4 Lunas remained a mystery. Extensive searches had turned up no sign of red, black, or silver wolf bloodlines. Maybe they didn't exist. Maybe they were still in hiding. Or maybe the prophecy was just a story, and Sarah was simply what she was, one woman trying to do her best. Either way, she had work to do. The clemency petitions are ready for your review, Marcus said one morning, setting a stack of papers on Sarah's desk. She had her own study now, right next to Theron's. 36 servants who were complicit in the abuse you suffered. They're all requesting pardons. Sarah looked at the names. Cook, who'd forbidden her meals. Maris, who'd locked her in the silver room. Others who'd pushed, tripped, mocked, and tormented her for years. Theron appeared in the doorway. Whatever you decide, I'll support. She could punish them. Send them away. Make them suffer as she'd suffered. But that's not who she wanted to be. Grant the pardons, she said. All of them. But on one condition. What condition? They spend the next year working with Thomas, training young wolves who've been abused or abandoned. Teaching them combat, survival, dignity. Sarah smiled. Let them learn what it means to protect instead of harm. Theron crossed to her, cupping her face. You're going to be an incredible queen. I'm already an incredible queen. She grinned. I'm just getting started. That evening, they held a small ceremony in the castle courtyard, not a grand coronation, but an intimate gathering. Sarah's official Luna blessing. Thomas stood beside her, no longer haunted. Elena sat in the front row, crying happy tears. Marcus and the guards who'd protected them formed an honor circle. And pack members, hundreds of them, filled the space, their faces showing something Sarah never thought she'd see, acceptance. Theron performed the ritual himself, marking her forehead with sacred ash and speaking the ancient words that bound Luna to pack. Do you, Sarah Whitlock, pledge to protect this pack with your life, your power, and your heart? I do. Do you promise to lead with wisdom, fight with courage, and love without reservation? I do. Then by the authority of the old ways and the power of the mate bond, I name you Luna, Queen of the North Pack. Theron's eyes blazed gold. Rise, my love. Rise, my queen. Rise, and let them see what I've known all along, that you were always worthy of the crown. Sarah stood, and her white wolf rose with her, not a full shift, but a shimmering aura that made her eyes glow silver. Power radiated from her, the ancient bloodline magic that had broken curses and healed wounds. The pack howled. A sound of acceptance, of celebration, of joy. And Sarah howled back. Later, when the celebration wound down and the castle settled into peaceful sleep, Theron found Sarah on their private balcony. Regrets? He asked, pulling her close. About which part? Almost dying? Starting a political incident? Discovering I'm a mythical wolf queen? Any of it. Sarah thought about the journey. The pain, the fear, the years of believing she was broken. Then she thought about standing here now, whole, loved, powerful. With a mate who'd chosen her over kingdoms. A brother restored. An aunt found. A pack that finally saw her worth. No regrets, she said firmly. Everything that happened led me here. Led me to you. I'm the one who should be grateful. Theron turned her to face him. You saved me, Sarah. Not just from the curse. From myself. From a life of ice and emptiness. We saved each other. We did. He kissed her softly. And we'll keep saving each other. Every day. For the rest of our lives. That's quite a promise. I'm quite serious about you. Sarah laughed, and the sound was pure joy. I love you, Theron Blackfrost. My cold king who's not cold anymore. I love you, Sarah Whitlock. My broken wolf who was never broken at all. They stood there under the stars, two wolves who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to walk into light together. The prophecy might be real. Other Lunas might exist. Threats would come, challenges would arise, and their story was far from over. But tonight, in this moment, they were just Theron and Sarah. Mates. Partners. King and queen. And finally, impossibly, blessedly home. The real end. 2 years later, final scene. Mama, tell us the story again. Sarah looked down at the twin toddlers tugging at her dress, a boy and a girl, both with their father's dark hair and their mother's gray eyes. Though sometimes, when they got excited, their eyes flashed silver and gold. Which story? She asked, scooping them both up. How you and Papa fell in love, the girl, Luna, demanded. It's not a fairy tale, the boy, Roland, named for his grandfather, protested. It's history. It's both, Theron said, appearing with Thomas close behind. Her brother was 20 now, serving as the pack's head of youth training. And it starts with a thunderstorm. And stale bread. Luna added. And a very stupid king who almost made the worst mistake of his life, Theron finished, pulling Sarah and the children into his arms. Thomas smiled. Tell them the part about Aunt Elena. And Uncle Marcus. And Great-Aunt Morgana. We don't talk about her, Sarah said firmly. Though even Morgana's story had found a strange redemption, in exile, stripped of power and madness, she'd apparently found peace working with sick children. Some wounds healed in unexpected ways. Tell us the important part, Roland insisted. Which part is that? Sarah asked. Her son's smile was pure sunshine. The part where everyone thought Mama was broken, but she was actually the strongest person in the whole kingdom. Sarah's throat tightened. She looked at Theron, who was blinking suspiciously. That's exactly right, Theron said softly. The strongest person in any kingdom. As the sun set over the North Pack, painting everything in shades of gold and amber, the Luna Queen held her family close and knew, truly knew, that every moment of pain had been worth it. Because this was where her heart had always been meant to find its home. In the arms of a king who'd burned the world down to choose her. In a kingdom that had learned to see strength in unexpected places. In a family built not just by blood, but by choice, courage, and love. The white wolf Luna had risen. And she'd found everything she never knew she needed. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.